All right. Catie and Jen, thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited to talk about digital media fellowships. Since seeing, months ago, some posts from Journal of Hospital Medicine and learning that digital media fellowships were a thing, I feel like I'm starting to see opportunities similar like pop up in my feed or other journals kind of doing the same thing, and I think it's an interesting opportunity for trainees or others looking to sort of learn more in the science communication space, and so excited to talk about that. But can you first, both of you, just share a little bit about how or what drew you into the field you're in now, and sort of how you arrived at the University of Rochester?
Sounds good. I can start. So I came here in 2016. I matched a Med Peds residency. And Med Peds here is like one of the first, if not the first Med Peds program. And it's a good program that's a good size, which I was looking for. And then both my parents are from Irondequoit. So I have family in the area, and Rochester kind of felt like home in some ways. And so between the two of those things, that was a good pull. And I always thought maybe I would leave. And then they warned me that everybody who comes to Rochester stays in Rochester. And here I am, 9 years, almost 10 years later. In terms of how I found hospital medicine, I don't know how many Med Peds people you know, but the classic is that we can never make up our minds. And so, like many Med Peds people, I kind of went through, oh, I like pulmonary critical care. Oh, I like this. Oh, I like this. And then I was like, well, if you like all of the things, probably what you should do is something that's still more general. And I really like kind of the inpatient and the fact that it's really a care team. And we work really closely with the nurses, the social workers, the care coordinators, the other consulting services, the residents, the APPs. And I'm someone who's very social and likes kind of working with other people. And so that team atmosphere, the acuity, and the ability to help people when they're kind of feeling their worst and help them get better was a really big draw for me.
Yeah, I came to the University of Rochester in 2011 after matching into internal medicine. I had originally gone into med school thinking about neurology because I was a neuroscience major. And at the time, there weren't a lot of treatments for neurologic conditions. So you got to be really smart and diagnose really complex things. But then it was really hard to help people or intervene. And so that had me start looking elsewhere. My mom was a med surge nurse for over 40 years, and she just retired last year. So having somebody working in the hospital was always normal to me growing up. And so that seemed like what medicine was. And so going into internal medicine, I had an idea about doing hospital medicine and then just really liked the generalist thing. And yeah, liked a lot of different things. Couldn't see myself dedicating the rest of my life to just one area. So embraced hospital medicine, again, enjoying the team collaboration that we have, getting to work with nurses, social workers, care coordinators, all of the therapists that work with our teams, getting to kind of meet people where they are and help them through a really tough time or make those hard transitions in life too. Just felt mostly comfortable to me. So that's what kind of drew me into hospital medicine. And then the people we get to work with are just fantastic. And so it's really easy to stay and, get to work with our great APPs, our residents, and all the staff in the hospital that crosses paths with us too.
I don't know if you all know Bo Hoon Lee, but she's a child neurologist. She is going to be on the Next Step podcast with us soon. She had the same story as you, Catie. It was like came to Rochester with all intentions of leaving, and here I am now raising a family and no intentions of leaving.
Yeah, it gets in your skin, under your skin.
They told me that on like residency interview day too. It's like people just tend to stay.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, that sounds good. And it worked out.
There you go.
It's a great place.
How did you become involved then with the Journal of Hospital Medicine? I know you both are involved in, or have been involved in a volunteer capacity for quite some time. I forget, Jen, did you start and recruit Catie, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll
Okay.
let Jen answer because
Yeah,
she's the
yeah.
reason I got involved.
Yeah.
Yes.
So right as I was like getting to some transition points in my career, Med Twitter before it became X was really a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I got involved in kind of getting to network with faculty through Twitter, and through really getting an introduction through POCUS, because that's where all the POCUS faculty was when I was learning about POCUS, or point of care ultrasound. So that was something I did earlier in my career, and then found an even bigger community in hospital medicine and medical education, which are sort of my two big buckets of my career. And so got to know folks through that med Twitter community. I consider myself an introvert, so was never one to walk up to someone at a conference and introduce myself, but getting to know them online kind of had that foot in the door for me. And the Journal of Hospital Medicine had JHM Chat on Twitter, which was sort of a monthly journal club, and we were even able to earn CME for it when it initially started. So you would just get to talk with leaders in hospital medicine, folks at similar points in their career, but also very different points in their career from different backgrounds. And it was just such an eye-opening and welcoming community that it really encouraged my volunteerism with the Society of Hospital Medicine and also with the journal. So when I saw the opportunities for digital media fellows, and when they first started, there was like 1 per year, and then it slowly built up to like 2 per year, then 3, making sure they had someone in pediatrics. By the time I actually got the fellowship, because I didn't get it my first year, but which is okay. They said definitely feel free to reapply, which I did, and then I was able to get it my second year, and we had a class of 4 who really took on different roles and kind of expanded some of the work of the fellowship. And then from there, the folks leading it at the time were Charlie Ray and, I have to go back up my name. I'm totally blanking on it right now. I'll get back to you on that. Sure. They were stepping down from running the digital media side of things, and had essentially asked my fellowship cohort if we wanted to step into that leadership role, which seemed like an incredible opportunity after doing the year of the digital media fellowship. And one of my mentors, who was a former fellow, Michelle Brooks, had encouraged me to apply again. And, those of us in the cohort had said we wanted to bring her in as well. And then, so that's how I got into kind of being more on the editorial team of graduating from fellowship to an editorial team member. And just as the applications for that subsequent year were closing, Catie had gone to an NAGEA conference, I think, through the AAMC, and learned about and making visual abstracts, and was like, I really like this. And I said, well, then you should apply for our fellowship. That's one of the main things that we do. And then I'll let her tell her own story about how she got involved.
Yeah. So I was at a conference that's like a medical education conference, a regional one that was in Burlington, which is amazing. And there was a workshop on kind of creating infographics that could be used. They kind of gave examples of visual abstracts as well as teaching materials for if you're doing teaching on like to your med students and residents, and kind of ways to make that into something that's a little bit more visually appealing and a little bit more organized, and like that can then be a handout for people. And so during the workshop, everyone kind of picked a topic that we then like practiced on. And my first, it's so ugly, and I like go back and look at it, and it's like super boring and the things don't match and stuff, but it was enough that I could see kind of how it could be used really well. And so Jen had become a mentor and friend of mine, and so I was just telling her about it, and she was like, that's exactly what this is, right? Because I had I like have an Instagram, but I like got rid of my Facebook a long time ago, and I like was not very active on Twitter. So I hadn't done kind of a lot of the other things, and so had been kind of worried about applying, but Jen encouraged me to, and I'm very glad that I did. My fellow cohort, there were also 4 of us, and we got really close as a group, and 3 of the 4 of us are still, because we much like Jen's class, had the opportunity when we graduated to become part of the digital media team. And so at first all 4 of us were, and then one person that kind of just wasn't aligning with her career goals, so left. But now 3 of the 4 of us are still on the team. And they're still 2 of my like very good friends. And so it's been a really interesting way, and kind of the way that our skill sets are different but overlapping has been really interesting. Like one of the members makes a lot of like videos and video content trying to dispel misinformation. And then one of the other ones has a lot more experience with kind of social media campaigns and education from like the pediatric hospital medicine. And so she does a lot more of the like good memes that are up to date, because she always knows all the memes that are happening that I like am so far behind on. And I'm like, because I'm not on TikTok, so I watch things 2 weeks later on Instagram.
The millennial way to do
the millennial way to do things. And so, she's, very good at kind of being up on all these things. And so we worked really well together as a group, and, really learned how to kind of share constructive feedback as, we were working on the visual abstracts and work with other people and have to kind of reach out to authors and people we didn't know. And so it was good in terms of building a skill set that I was really interested in, and then also building skill sets that I would probably not have chosen to work on, but I think I'm better for having worked on them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of other skills that come with it. Just we've had to pivot so much in our social media strategy as a team, and sort of evolve not only our skills in creating visuals, but also where we put our content, how we interact with it, and sort of keeping track of where our audience is too. And that was not something I would have ever expected, but now it's so important with where we're at with medical misinformation and all the conflicting opinions that you see about health and healthcare on social media. It just kind of highlights how important those spaces can be, and how having well-researched and evidence-based content and finding ways to get it out to people is so important too.
Yeah.
And they're really accessible. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And yeah, I'm sure that's one of the biggest challenges with work like that is staying, on top of where the right people are getting their information and how they're consuming it. And I want to talk more about that in a second, but so I just want to sort of talk about what exactly the fellowship is. So it is a how long do they last, or technically?
It's a year.
Long
fellowship. It's volunteer based, but you have to have kind of a letter of commitment from your division chief saying, that you'll be able to go to the national conference, because that's kind of our big. It's our big conference for the Society of Hospital Medicine, which the Journal of Hospital Medicine is like the journal for the Society of Hospital Medicine. So it's our big national conference, and also like the opportunity for all of us to get together in person and like meet the other editorial board members, do networking and things like that. So it's kind of like the big celebration too, for the fellowship. So it's a year. So it's like July to July / August through July, depending upon the year. But that general timeline. And it's divided into different sections, which have changed over time. We have different rotations. So when I was a fellow, there were 4 rotations. I don't know how many.
We have three.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So as we've expanded kind of some of the things that we're doing, that has changed. And then Michelle Brooks, who Jen mentioned earlier, has made a curriculum for the fellows now too. So there's a more kind of standardized curriculum of things that we go through. And so now I'm gonna have to count how many rotations, but it's like 5 or 6. And then there's a person who is kind of the mentor for each of those rotations. And then we all have a mentee kind of that's like a more longitudinal mentee, regardless of what rotation they're on.
Right.
So I am in charge of the visual abstracts rotation. And then
I am doing community building, which has been that was where JHM Chat was for us, was our big
Yes.
community building. And then we realized we were mostly chatting with the authors of the paper we were discussing and ourselves. So we were trying to find another way to build community on other platforms or in other structures. And so we're still brainstorming with that at the moment. But still trying to think through different ways our posts can build community, or where we can bring folks in and have those conversations again across where you're at in your career or how many papers you've authored and all that sort of stuff, just taking down those barriers so hospitalists from anywhere and in any place they are can connect and continue to feel supported by the society and the journal.
other kind of rotations are posting, and then we have like a LinkedIn specific one because that's been an area we've been kind of going into a lot more. And then I think you actually met with Leah, so thank you.
Yes.
She said it was wonderful to
Oh,
talk.
good.
So thank you. But yeah, so LinkedIn one, as well as posting kind of the more general posting, because we cross post to a few different sites because we've realized that people are still kind of on a few different sites. So we try to get things out to as many places as we can. And then there's a video content one, and then one that we call, I think, educational materials or educational, which is kind of more longer form. So rather than just like a single post or a single visual abstract, it's more like a series of things, of the images that can go over a topic that's a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, or go through a clinical guideline or something along those lines that I try to think of people like pulling them out on rounds and going through them with their team as like it's a good outline for that, and being having people be able to use those in a productive way for themselves. But our video content is also kind of part of the educational piece too. So the fellows can kind of choose, because some of us are a little afraid of video and would rather just post content, while others are totally comfortable with it. And so the fellows can kind of decide which way they want to go with it too.
So are the fellows folks that are typically interested then in like how to better communicate, how to, tell their, scientific stories, quote unquote, better, through these different sort of tactics like video and whatnot. So they're usually interested in how to better communicate or how to better teach.
And I think it's evolved over time too. I think we're getting more and more fellows who have a lot more experience with social media, either through their own platforms, or they work with their institution, like they might be their Department of Medicine person who runs the social media account or division of hospital medicine. Whereas that was really where a lot of us grew during our fellowship. So it's definitely shifted in that way, where the fellows we're seeing come up have a little bit more experience, and then how to use those platforms, and also learn how a journal works and how a journal interacts with those sorts of platforms too.
Yeah.
And I think how the journal works is a big, I don't want to say hidden part of it, but it's not always the thing you think about the most, but it's a huge part of the fellowship too, is just sort of seeing the behind the scenes of that and learning more from that too.
Yeah, that's been really interesting to see.
Yeah. I think what originally caught my eye was I think it was a video with, it was like it was on LinkedIn, but I think it was, a vertical video with a gentleman speaking and, a paper in the back, and he was kind of, doing an explainer. And that, again, that kind of caught my attention. And then I think I saw something on LinkedIn about the visual abstracts and, the stuff you were working on there. Can you give some more examples of just some of the projects that fellows are working on currently? I know things change over time as audiences go to different places and have different expectations as far as content. But just curious, what folks are working on.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is LinkedIn, which is really cool and exciting, but works differently than a lot of other social media platforms. Like the engagement looks very different. The posts look very different. Like they're much longer. It's like one very obvious way that they're different. Right. And so I think learning how to kind of use LinkedIn to the best way that it can be used has been one big learning experience and one big project that's been undertaken, because obviously those bigger posts take a lot longer to kind of develop and clarify versus some of the other posts where we're just kind of but where we're trying to like highlight all of the articles for each month is like one of the goals with our post is to highlight every one of the articles in that month's issue. And then sometimes we'll go back and reflect on other important issues. So with like the measles outbreak that's happening right now, we're kind of reposting some of the tutorials about measles because there was a paper in the journal about kind of how do you recognize measles? How do you care for people with measles and things like that? So so some of those are not easier, but like, can you get out and it's easier to kind of get them out a little bit faster versus like the longer form posts where you're kind of trying to really engage conversations with people take a little bit more development. And so that's been one big area that's changed.
Yeah. I'd say the use of videos is increasing. We're still seeing some really great engagement on Instagram, and that's a very video-friendly platform. So that's where we see a lot of engagement there. I think another thing that's just overall changed is, you used to be able to schedule a whole month of posts, and you still can, but there's also still a lot more reacting to the moment, like learning about disease outbreaks and things, and making sure that, if there's an outbreak of measles or whooping cough, that we're getting out our information from our vaccine preventable disease category on how to treat, how to recognize who's appropriate to vaccinate and things like that. And kind of responding to those in the moment changes, as well as highlighting all of the great work in each issue that we have as well.
I feel like one thing our fellows this year have been good at, they're also much more up on the memes than I am. So like when Taylor Swift got engaged and there were a bunch of memes around that, one of our fellows did like this amazing series of, kind of using that to highlight some of our things we do for no reason articles. And so I think there's been a lot of that too, where kind of doing better at kind of recognizing some of those trends and trying to take advantage of that a little bit more.
Right.
You got to have one person like that on your team. We do on the URMC communication side. We always go to Lizzie. We're like, Lizzie, you got to make us look cool this week. What's what's going on over on TikTok? And she keeps us cool.
Yeah. We've got a couple people who are learning the dances that are popular or whatever. And...
Oh my gosh. So funny. There is a funny video, or I don't know if it's a trend, but it's like, this woman has her social media content creator gear in her hands, and she's walking. I think it was like, I can't remember if it was a university library that posted. It was some library, but she walks in with her light and her phone and her tripod, and the caption is like, when the social media girl comes in, and then it cuts to like all the employees running away or like covering their face. It's just become like part of, and it's funny. You start to get that feeling sometimes, like if you're walking around a medical center or a school of medicine trying to get, it's like, oh, they're probably looking like, oh, here comes Jeff again, trying to, I've got this thesis to write and he wants me to do a dance. Like, sure, no problem. Earlier you mentioned, Jen, working to make the science and this work more accessible.
Mhm.
How are you doing that through digital communication and some of this work in the fellowship?
Yeah, so I think one of the highlights of the curriculum is every year we meet with one of the graphic designers from the Society of Hospital Medicine, and they really go through just making sure that visually things are accessible. So making sure
Mm,
our contrast makes sense, that we're putting
okay,
colors together in a way that we're being friendly to people with color blindness, people with
sure.
low vision, that those sort of accessibility standards are being met just in a visual way. And then I really think our visual abstracts can help break down papers to at least what a quick glance would be. We still want folks to read the full article to get the whole picture, because the visual abstract and that's one of the struggles in making a visual abstract, is you don't need to put the whole article on one slide.
It's very tempting though.
It's highly tempting to do that, but just what's sort of that headline that you need to know about this article that kind of pulls you in or makes you want to look more. And so really refining that and making sure we're getting that clear message out front with our posts, I think is really helpful in that space.
One thing that, I've talked to trainees about and know, that some other colleagues at the school will tell their like faculty that are active on social media will tell their trainees like, it's not everybody is going to go to the journal anymore to read your paper. Like you need to be more proactive in putting that information in front of people and, like you said, kind of making it accessible for the people that need to understand it. And I'm just curious, working at this for the society for a journal. I mean, do you all talk about things like that too? I mean, I know obviously you want people to read the journal, but I'm sure you're thinking about stuff like that as well.
Yeah, and I think I'm not going to know any specific numbers
Yeah.
off the top of my head, but I mean, we have noticed like we're able to tell there's an e-table of contents that goes out to essentially, I think anyone who's a member of the Society of Hospital Medicine will get an email every month with the table of contents of that month's journal, and then it'll have the visual abstracts in there if there's a visual abstract for that article, and they're able to track how many people are clicking on different articles. And so we have noticed that like the ones with visual abstracts get clicked on more often.
Mm-hmm.
So even just that kind of drawing people's attention, like when they're looking at the table of contents, has been helpful in terms of that email blast that goes out. And then, yeah, the goal is that if people see a visual abstract on a social media site and it's kind of appealing and eye-catching, that they'll then hopefully go and find that interesting enough to read the whole
Yeah.
article. But also, hopefully it's enough information to have people learn something quickly as well, and then catch their interest to read the whole thing. But yeah, I had another thought that I lost, but I will cut back probably.
Yeah. Yeah, we do pay attention to our engagement and what that looks like and what our audience does on social media. As sort of a marker, and thinking about even altmetric for some of our
Yes.
articles, and where, although we've learned that that's not as easy to figure out either, of what gets counted versus not counted. Like some podcasts versus others aren't included, and Blue
And a lot of
Sky
it's
counts, but not
proprietary.
LinkedIn. And
Oh,
Yeah.
they need to get LinkedIn on there. I
I know.
know.
So just, it's sort of informing us too that measures are only as good as the data you put into them. And
Mm,
so it helps us recognize that too, that even if our, the article reads or page clicks or something.
Downloads
Yeah,
or
page downloads.
interactions
Thank
and
you.
stuff.
Yeah. That's not the only piece. And, looking kind of across platforms and across different measures really gives us more of the full story than just looking at one piece.
yeah.
because we just don't even know where some of the data, and that was our problem with some of the stuff coming out of X, formerly Twitter, is it stopped reporting through Sprout as clearly as it
Yep.
was before, so we don't know what's real
Yeah.
all the time with that. So
Yeah. And
not
kind of,
knowing what data we can rely on, we have to really expand what we use to inform how things are doing. That's it.
And I remembered my thought. My thought
Oh,
oh,
came
good.
back to me.
please.
But I was just thinking because, your comment about kind of having to put things in front of people and not people not necessarily just starting at the journal. That's one thing that we're trying to work on with the workflow is because the articles will be published online before they come out in that article, like, or that journal issue that has that table of contents. So it'll be like E published in April, but then B in the August issue or something, say. And so if authors are doing that, if they're putting it out on their social media and things like that to get it out there, we're hoping to kind of be able to align that a little better so that we can kind of partner with them as it gets published online. It's just hard because that's a much more fluid process. Like it's happening kind of all the time and like a
Right.
rolling process
Right.
versus the very like concrete month to month thing.
Right.
So I think that's been hard, but it is an eventual goal to be able to kind of be doing that with the authors as it gets published online.
Right. Yeah, and Catie had mentioned previously too that you develop skills and feedback on this as well, especially as we look at each other's longer form posts, videos, and visual abstracts. We just get more comfortable giving feedback, but all of that is very like deadline driven, that like we'll have this month's visual abstracts by this time, so then we can give feedback in this block. And so that real time, trying to keep up with things real time sort of works against that system a little bit too. So just constantly adapting and
Yeah.
and rolling with it is certainly part of the process as well.
Yeah. And I feel like some things we want the whole team to like meet and talk about and
Sure.
determine our approach. And it's amazing because we have all these people with different ideas and different skills and different backgrounds. And so I think it makes our ideas and our content better. But then if we're also trying to get everyone to have time to give feedback or to respond, that, slows things down sometimes too. And so it's always that balance.
If a trainee or somebody who's just starting their career as a clinician or a researcher, what have you, if they hear this and they think, okay, that sounds like something I want to do, how can they start preparing or make themselves better candidates for these types of fellowships?
Okay.
I'll let you start.
All right. I would say jump in and kind of get to know the different platforms, get your own practice in putting out information. I definitely wasn't putting a ton out on social media before I did mine, but even in bedside teaching or small group teaching, just being able to distill complex information down into something digestible. I mean, we even do that with patient care. Just getting that practice and getting a clear message across from a wealth of complex information, and maybe creating a portfolio for yourself of how you've done that. What are some of your favorite talks that you go back to, and what that process has been like? Because there is sort of an essay that's part of our application that kind of talks about interest. But I think knowing how information is being distributed across platforms, or even that information is being distributed in different ways across platforms, and not having to be involved in every single platform, because that's a lot of time and emotional energy that you can spend in some spaces. But having some that you're comfortable with, and following journals, I think on social media is really eye-opening too, because I think the Journal of Hospital Medicine has a very well-established now digital media presence, and other journals are developing in that space more, and we're seeing that across the board. So just seeing that kind of evolution in what journals are putting out there, and what shows up in your own feed from different medical journals or other things that you enjoy, and what draws you to it. It can all be helpful ways. and telling somebody that you're interested too, so you can get that sponsorship
There
as
you go.
well.
Yes, it's helpful. I feel like too, there's a lot of people with imposter syndrome, myself included. And so sometimes, it's helpful just to have that person who knows the things that you're interested in, who's going to be able to have an outside perspective. Because if you're always just like, I don't know, it's not that cool, or, is it that interesting? Are people going to find it that interesting? And have someone being like, yes, do something about that,
Yeah.
and encouraging you is really helpful. So finding those people that are there for you and kind of know your interests and can help push you to do things that you might otherwise be too nervous to do is really important.
I just have a couple more things,
Sure.
and you've probably hit on this a little bit throughout this interview, but for each of you, looking back, how is this experience continuing to influence your work and career direction? Catie, you want to start?
Sure, I can start. I think one thing that's been really huge is just the connections that I've made with people. Because I think, especially since I trained here and then stayed on here, there's a lot of really great things about working at the place that you trained. You know the system well, you know the people. It's like easy to hit the ground running. But you also are like very much set in the ways of like, this is how we do things here. And so I think meeting people from other places, hearing how things happen at other places really helps to open up your mind to like, oh, why don't we do that? Is that something we should look into doing? And so I think some of those interests in things of like, how can I make this system better? And some of my kind of like quality improvement interest, which is another interest of mine, I think has come out of, reading the articles more closely as well, right?
Yeah.
And seeing like, because if you're making a visual abstract, you have to read the article really closely. And so I think I've learned a lot from that, and that has given me more confidence to kind of work on trying to turn some of my other projects into scholarship that I probably would not have done otherwise, and makes me kind of realize what is good, quote unquote, good enough, but like what is interesting enough, what is important enough to publish, what are the best ways to do that, and then how do you kind of communicate your findings, because obviously it's different in a full paper in a scientific journal than it would be in other places. And it's kind of its own language that way. So I think that's been really big, is just kind of outside perspectives, people who are like gonna then encourage me, extra mentorship, and then really learning kind of more about how articles are edited, how articles are chosen, and how that process works.
Okay. How about you, Jen?
Yeah, I'll echo a lot of what Catie said of just the connections that you make with people and hearing different ideas and recognizing from reading all of the journal articles. I felt like an encyclopedia of the journal, or like my own index of like, no, we covered that topic here and here. And when I was on my fellowship, because you got so intimately close with those articles. But I think our editorial team, especially our digital media team, joins all of the just general editorial meetings, and it's an open conversation where all viewpoints and opinions are welcome, and it really helps you establish your voice and feel comfortable being heard and expressing your ideas. And I think, as Catie said, that leads to more quality improvement projects, or recognizing things that could benefit from either further study or changes, and helping to be part of those solutions. And just they're also great connectors with getting you involved with other people at other institutions, and kind of spreading your wings in a safe way. It's been really helpful for that. And it's such a at times intimidating team, because you're like, wow, these people are like the leaders of hospital medicine and know all this stuff, but they're also so warm and welcoming, and are so open to sharing their thoughts and opinions and hearing yours too. I think that's one thing that was really helpful in the fellowship. The editor-in-chief, Samir Shah, will always make a space, especially early in the year, to say, fellows, what's your thought on this? Or fellows, what's your opinion? And waits to hear from a fellow. And it's normal to have fellows share, and you really feel part of the team that way. And I think, a great way to find your voice. I've definitely written more because of what I've learned from the
That's
journal
great.
and topics that come up. So it's definitely helped my career in that way and getting some scholarship out, thanks to that.
Yeah. I want to echo Jen's point. I think that is something I really appreciate about the journal, and about Samir's leadership at the journal, is that he really does want to hear from everybody. And like, I think he models really well that way of being like, no, fellows, it's your time. So it was scary the first time as a fellow when I was like, hi, I'm new here, But I was also like, this is really cool that he wants to know what my thoughts are, and that everyone like wanted to listen, and everyone really encourages it.
Yeah.
And I've gotten messages from people after meetings being like, thank you for sharing that. That was really cool. That like welcomingness and that really feeling appreciated, I think is really wonderful. And it's really nice to see that modeled and that type of leadership modeled. And I also see people being like, I didn't know this thing. I just learned this, and like sharing that on the thing. And I'm like, okay, me too. Like, because there are people who like know a ton about statistics and know a ton about like
Yeah.
all these,
Right.
Areas that I don't. And it's not possible for me to know about all those areas. And
Right.
it's an unrealistic expectation. But I think seeing that modeled more and more, of people being like, wow, I didn't know that. Thanks for sharing that, has been really cool.
Yeah.
And change the way that I, lead on rounds and things like that. I think it's given me ways to try to create those same spaces.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah.
I love that. Last thing, this has been great. Really appreciate you both for your time and all the information. What does the application process look like for these fellowships? And if you can speak to any other opportunities you know about, great. But just curious, what the application process looks like if folks are listening and are, think, oh, well, that sounds like me. I want to apply.
And I guess it's a good time to mention, too, that we did the digital media fellowship. There's also an editorial fellowship at the Journal of Hospital Medicine, as well as several other journals. Like I know Journal of General Internal Medicine has one, off the top of my head. Yeah.
Has one. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are more for, like all the papers are peer reviewed in these journals, right? And so, but you're sort of like, you send it out to people who know about different areas, but you're kind of limited by how helpful the reviews are that you get back. So the idea behind these editorial fellowships is to get people experience by working with a mentor. They like review several articles like with the mentor. So really learn how to provide really effective feedback that is really like helpful. And then they have this pool of people who they know are good at reviewing journal articles. And so that's another really cool program that's available and is available at several journals. So I wanted to make sure that I plugged that too.
Yeah, I think a lot of places are doing both now with the editorial and digital media. For the Journal of Hospital Medicine, the call goes out in the spring usually for applications. I think we try to have it due by tax day typically. But usually we want to make sure we can get to our national conference and try to recruit people there as well, or be available for questions too. So usually sometime in the spring, it tends to be a one-page application. I think you answer a couple of questions about your interests, why you want to do the fellowship, what your current experiences are, and submit your CV as well as a letter of support from a division chief or department chair, saying that they're excited to have you do this. They want to support you gaining these skills and support you going to the national conference in the following year as sort of the capstone of the fellowship, because we do have a big in-person editorial meeting and do a SWOT analysis at that meeting for the journal, which again the fellows participate in and are active in. So it's a big part of keeping the journal up to date for the year, and so fellows are a big part of that too.
All right. Well, that's all the questions I had. Thank you both so much for your time.
Thank you. It was fun.
Yeah.